Hello everybody, I'm InTheLittleWood, also known as Martin. Welcome back to the channel. Sorry about my voice, my hair, my comfies on today. I wasn't actually planning on making a video because I'm still a bit under the weather after Insomnia, but there has been some pretty cool Pokemon Go news. So if you don't know by now from watching my videos or having frequented the Pokemon Go subreddit, you might not know that people are very good now at picking apart the game and actually getting all the way in to see the coding of how Pokemon Go actually functions. And a couple days ago, some guys came across something known as buddies in Pokemon Go. Now this is obviously a feature that doesn't exist just yet. They started talking about it, posting pieces of code, speculating on what it might be, and then very quickly after it there was an official blog post by the community manager on the Pokemon Go blog. And basically there he spoke about the fall season, so this feature might not even turn up for another month or two, but I think just to nip it in the bud and to make sure that hype doesn't rise too high and that they can't meet it, they basically showed off the brand new buddy system, which is really cool. So you essentially pick one Pokemon that you want to be your buddy. Once you select them, they'll appear on your character profile screen. If they're huge like Snorlax, then they'll stand behind you, and if they're a little bit teeny tiny like a Squirtle or a Charmander, then they'll stand in front of you and just to the side. And essentially you are walking this Pokemon, and once you've selected that Pokemon, as well as living on your profile screen, it will also live on your world map. So you know in the bottom left corner where you see your player's icon, their head, as well as their level, their name, and you sort of have an XP bar as well. Well, there's now going to be an extra little orb just next to that which has your buddy's head in. And as well as that, if you notice around the buddy's head, there is actually like a progress bar, and I think what that progress bar is showing you how long it is until you get your next reward. Now the rewards are a little bit unclear at the moment. The only one that it mentions for certain is candy. It doesn't mention anything about raising CP of a Pokemon, it doesn't mention anything about Stardust, it just says other helpful bonuses. And then beyond that, the only other bit of information they provided in the blog post is the fact that you can actually switch out your buddy at any time. So now that we've got all of the current information that we currently have, let's just speculate, let's just humor ourselves. So I think there's a couple of reasons why this has happened. I think on the Pokemon Go subreddit there was a leash system which gained a lot of traction and a lot of popularity very quickly. That one was a little bit different though, because when they spoke about it, they were talking about rather than receiving candy for walking a Pokemon, you simply were raising their CP level. So instead of getting Stardust or other things to really power them up, that's what you gain instead. It wouldn't really affect your HP because obviously that's all dependent on the IVs of a Pokemon and their size and their weight, this, that and the other, but I think that was kind of a positive response to a community post. And then I think the other reason is the one that makes a little bit more sense, because I've personally felt like this and many others have as well, and that is that when you have your starter Pokemon at the start of the game, they make this big hoo-ha about it in Pokemon Go. Like you can see the three, you can walk further if you want to get a Pikachu, but you lose that bond with that Pokemon very quickly. You either find a more powerful one that you trade it out for, or just simply you just don't find any. I mean, how often do you find Bulbasaur's, Charmanders or Squirtles out in the real world? Unless you know where a nest is, it's almost impossible to find them. So you very quickly just kind of like don't bother with that Pokemon anymore. So I think what this is going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to bring that Pokemon from the very start of our journey all the way to the end of our journey as well. Much like in the old games where you would start in Pallet Town with a Bulbasaur and you go all the way to the Elite Four and you would still have a Venusaur when you got there. So now that we've spoken about some of the reasons why I think this feature is going to exist, I'm sure you have a couple of questions. I have a couple of questions. My first one is kind of a no-brainer. If you have a buddy Pokemon, what's the deal with gyms? Now I'm going to assume it's pretty obvious that you can't just leave a Pokemon in a gym and it also be your buddy at the same time. That Pokemon can't be in two places at once. But it's not unfamiliar for Niantic to kind of oversee a feature and add in an extra like 3 button presses to do something quite simple in the game. I'm worried personally that if you have a buddy Pokemon, you're going to have to remove it as a buddy simply to take it into a gym to fight. I feel like if you've got the buddy Pokemon with you, that's almost like you're putting your best foot forwards and he should be almost like your leading charge, but I'm fairly certain they're not going to do that. I reckon we're going to have to pull it away from buddy just to be able to fight. Another question I have is, are we going to be rewarded and we're going to be given multipliers for spending longer with a particular buddy, whether it's a case of walking them a longer distance or having them there for a certain amount of time? I'm not sure, because when you take over a gym at the moment, you get awarded 500 Stardust and you get 10 Poker Coins from the shop if you happen to redeem them from the shield icon. If you get 2, it doesn't actually multiply upwards. If you get 3, it still doesn't do it. I don't know if I'm unaware of some kind of multiplier, maybe if you hold 5 gyms, but so far I've not seen anybody report that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you walk a Pokemon 2 kilometers and get 1 candy, walk it another 2 kilometers, it still only gives you 1 more candy. And then that leads me on to my third question of how much candy are they going to actually award for walking these Pokemon? Because it's this weird balance that they've got to strike between making people want to walk a Pokemon and that it actually feels like it's worth it, as opposed to just them going, you know what, the buddy system, it's not even worth the time. I'm just going to go out and catch another Pokemon in this evolutionary tree and level up the Pokemon that way. It's a really hard one for them to weigh up. And then I thought it'd be cool to wrap up the video with a couple of things that I think they will never do, but I would absolutely love it if they did. The first one is pretty obvious. If you've got a walking buddy, why not have them walking next to you on the world map? Can you imagine walking around and having this humongous Snorlax just walking behind your character on the world map? It would be ridiculous. It would be absurd, obviously. You wouldn't even be able to like see a Pokestop if you were stood nearby it, but that would be so cool. Just a little throwback to the older Pokemon games, going all the way back to Pokemon Yellow where Pikachu used to follow you around. That would be really nice. I think it might be quite cool as well if they finally introduced a reward for having a higher evolutionary Pokemon from a certain chain, because people always talk about if they catch a Pidgeotto, they'd like to get more Pidgey candy than if they had a Pidgey. So how about if we walk a Pidgeot? Well, I guess it would fly everywhere, but anyway, if we were to walk a Pidgeot as opposed to a Pidgey, maybe the reward system would give us a little bit more, simply because we've already put that work in to get the other Pokemon in the first place. And the third one, I don't even think is that much of a stretch or an ask. I just think it would be quite nice if whenever a friend system is introduced or the trading system is introduced and people can actually come and look at your profile, I think it'd be quite nice just to be able to see the CP of your buddy Pokemon as well as your trainer level. Just because then you can use it almost like as a way of bragging to other people. Like, you might not necessarily need any more Dragonite candy, but if you've got a maxed out CP Dragonite and you have that as your buddy, when people look at your profile, they're going to think you're a boss. So there you are. There's some speculation, some news, and some kind of ideas for how this system might work. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about the brand new system. We probably aren't going to see this until sort of autumn, fall time. It does say specifically in the post then. I think they were just doing a bit of damage control just now. And just one more time, I want to say thank you again for anybody that I met at Insomnia this past week. I was there for every single day. I was on the main stage, the expo stage, the Yogscast booth, the show floor, pub quiz, everywhere. It was such a fun time. All of you were super, super cool. Loads of you have been playing Pokemon Go and we had like loads of geeky chats about it. I absolutely adored it and I still can't believe to this day that this is my job. Speaking of that, one of the cool opportunities that I've got coming up is I'm going to be going to America for Minecon and TwitchCon, and I'm going to get to play Pokemon Go out there and try and find the American exclusive Taurus. So keep your eyes peeled onto this channel for when I head out there and my hunt for Taurus begins. Have a wonderful day everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.